The stars looked peaceful through the bridge windows of the human ship Dauntless. Captain Tae-ho Kim stood with his hands behind his back, watching the distant planets of the Outer Rim territories. His crew had been out here for 6 months, studying old alien ruins and mapping new star systems. It was quiet work, the kind that helped humanity understand their place in the galaxy. "Captain," called Communications Officer Jun Lee from his station. "I'm picking up something strange. Multiple ships, very large, coming out of hyperspace." Tae-ho walked over to look at the scanner display. Dozens of massive ships were appearing around them, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ships were dark gray with sharp edges, looking more like weapons than vessels for travel. "Red alert," Tae-ho said calmly. "All hands to battle stations. Yuna, get me a full scan of those ships." Chief Engineer Yuna Park worked quickly at her console. "Captain, these ships are huge. Each one is at least 10 times the size of our biggest cruisers. Their weapon systems are beyond anything in our database." The bridge crew watched as more ships kept appearing. Soon, there were over 200 alien vessels surrounding the small human exploration ship. Marine Commander Hana Choi stepped onto the bridge, her hand resting on her sidearm. "Any idea who they are?" she asked. Before anyone could answer, the main screen flickered to life. A massive alien face appeared, looking down at them with 4 glowing red eyes. The creature had gray skin like stone, with sharp teeth, and no visible nose. When it spoke, its voice was deep and terrifying. "Human vessel, you will identify yourself and surrender immediately. I am War Prime Kethvar of the Vorthak Empire. Your species is now under our protection." Tae-ho stepped forward. "This is Captain Tae-ho Kim of the Earth vessel Dauntless. We are on a peaceful research mission. We mean no harm to anyone." Kethvar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Harm? You could not harm us if you tried, primitive creature. Your weapons are toys. Your ships are barely capable of faster-than-light travel. But you interest us for another reason." The War Prime's 4 eyes focused on something off-screen. "Your navigation computer contains the location of your homeworld. Earth, you call it. We have studied the star charts, and we are impressed. Your planet sits at the center of 7 major hyperspace routes. It is the most valuable strategic location we have encountered in over 1,000 years." Tae-ho felt his blood turn cold. "What do you want with Earth?" "We want your planet," Kethvar said simply. "The Vorthak Empire has decided to claim Earth as our new capital world. Your species will be relocated to other planets where you can live under our guidance." "That's impossible," Hana said, stepping forward. "Earth has over 12 billion people. You can't just move an entire species." "We move species all the time," Kethvar replied. "It is what we do. We bring order to chaos. We bring strength to weakness. The galaxy is better when the Vorthak Empire controls it." Yuna looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Captain, they're scanning our computers. They're downloading our star charts and communication codes." "Stop them," Tae-ho ordered. "I can't," Yuna said. "Their technology is too advanced. They're taking everything." Kethvar nodded on the screen. "Good. Now we know exactly where your Earth is located. We know your military positions, your trade routes, your colonies. Humans are very organized for such a primitive species." The War Prime leaned forward, his 4 eyes glowing brighter. "Here are your terms, Captain Tae-ho Kim of Earth. Your species has 7 of your solar days to evacuate your planet. We will provide transport to suitable worlds where humans can live safely under Vorthak protection. Any humans remaining on Earth after 7 days will be removed by force." "And if we refuse?" Tae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer would be terrible. "Then Earth will be sterilized completely," Kethvar said without emotion. "Every city, every building, every living thing will be burned away until only bare rock remains. We have done this 43 times to species that chose not to accept our generous offer of relocation." The alien commander touched something on his side of the screen. "Perhaps a demonstration will help you understand that this is not a negotiation." The main screen split to show 2 views. On one side was still Kethvar's frightening face. On the other side was a live image of Titan Station, humanity's largest military outpost in the outer solar system. The space station was huge, home to 50,000 military personnel and their families. Your Titan station, Kethvar said. We will now show you what happens to those who might consider resistance. One of the Vorthak ships, barely visible in the distance, fired a single beam of bright red energy. The beam crossed the vast distance between stars and seconds and struck Titan Station directly. The massive military base, which had taken 20 years to build, simply vanished in a flash of light. 50,000 people. Gone in an instant. The bridge of the Dauntless went completely silent. June covered his mouth with his hand. Yuna stared at the empty space where Titan Station had been. Hana clenched her fists so hard her knuckles turned white. 50,000 of your people have just died, Kethvar said calmly. This is what happens when the Vorthak Empire must enforce its will. Earth can avoid this fate by accepting our generous terms, Teho found his voice. You murdered 50,000 innocent people to make a point. We eliminated a potential military threat, Kethvar corrected. Earth has 6 days and 23 hours remaining to accept our terms. After that time expires, we will assume humanity has chosen the path of resistance. The War Prime's image began to fade. Do not attempt to warn Earth, Captain Kim. Our ships are faster than yours. Our message will reach your homeworld long before your little vessel could return home. In fact, our ultimatum is being broadcast to every human settlement right now. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge crew in stunned silence. Outside the windows, the Vorthak fleet began to move, their massive ships turning toward Earth's direction like a pack of predators heading toward their prey. Teho looked at his crew. These were good people, trained for exploration and research, not for war. But now they had witnessed the opening move of what might be humanity's final chapter. Set course for Earth, he said quietly. Maximum speed. Captain, Yuna said, even at our fastest we won't reach home for 3 days. Then we'll arrive just in time to see what humanity decides to do, Teho replied. Whether we fight, flee, or surrender, we're going to be there. As the Dauntless turned toward home, none of them could have imagined what they would find when they arrived. They expected to see panic, evacuation ships, or perhaps the preparations for a hopeless last stand. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this day for over 200 years. War Prime Kethvar stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the holographic display of human space. His 4 eyes studied the data streams coming from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. 3 days had passed since his ultimatum, and Earth's response had been completely unexpected. Silence. Complete and total silence. Intelligence Officer Zeltok, Kethvar called to his subordinate. Report on human activity. Zeltok, a smaller Vorthak with 6 arms instead of the usual 4, scuttled forward. War Prime. The humans have ceased all interstellar communication. Every human ship has returned to their home solar system. Their trade routes are abandoned. Their military patrols have withdrawn completely. Are they evacuating? Kethvar asked. We do not believe so, War Prime. Our long-range sensors detect massive industrial activity on Earth and throughout their solar system. They appear to be building something, but we cannot determine what. Kethvar laughed, the sound echoing through the command center. They are building weapons, obviously. Primitive creatures always try to fight when faced with superior power. What could they possibly create in 4 days that would threaten the Vorthak Empire? Their technology is centuries behind ours, Zeltok agreed. Their fastest ships barely reach 1/10 the speed of our slowest vessels. Their weapons could not penetrate our shield systems, even if we turned off our defensive arrays. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Earth, Admiral Dong Wuhan walked through the underground command center. The facility had been built into a mountain, hidden from any possible orbital bombardment. Thousands of people worked at computer stations, coordinating humanity's response to the Vorthak threat. Status report, Admiral Han said to his aide. All human colonies have confirmed receipt of Protocol Omega, the aide replied. Every ship, station, and settlement is implementing the procedures. The Vorthaks think we're hiding in fear, but we're actually activating systems that have been waiting for this moment for 2 centuries. Admiral Han nodded and walked toward the main planning room, where Earth's leaders had gathered for an emergency session. President So Jin-yang stood at the head of a large table, surrounded by military commanders, scientists, and intelligence officers. Dr. Min-ho Kang, President Yang said to the elderly scientist sitting nearby, "Please explain to everyone what we're dealing with." Dr. Kang stood up slowly. He had spent his entire life preparing for this day, though he had hoped it would never come. The Vorthak Empire rules through intimidation and overwhelming technological superiority. They have conquered over 300 different species using the same method every time. They appear suddenly, demonstrate their power by destroying something important, then offer the choice between relocation or complete destruction. "And it has worked every time?" asked General Wu Jin Park. "Every single time," Dr. Kang confirmed. "No species has ever successfully resisted the Vorthaks. But no species has ever been as prepared as we are." President Yang activated a holographic display showing the entire solar system. "Ladies and gentlemen, humanity has been expecting this day since we first developed faster-than-light travel. Every human colony, every space station, every ship was built with hidden military capabilities that we have never revealed to anyone, not even our closest allies." Chief of Intelligence Yoonji Cho stepped forward. "For the past 50 years, we have been conducting covert operations to study Vorthak technology. Every time our ships had a random encounter with Vorthak vessels, we were actually gathering intelligence. Every time we suffered a navigation error that brought us into their territory, we were placing monitoring equipment. We know everything about them," Admiral Han added. "Their ship designs, their weapon systems, their communication protocols, their military doctrine. But they know almost nothing about our true capabilities." Dr. Kang smiled for the first time in days. The Vorthaks made a critical error. They assumed that all species develop technology in the same way they did, through conquest and intimidation. But humanity developed our technology through cooperation and innovation. We built weapons they cannot imagine because we think differently than they do. Back on the Vorthak flagship, Geltok received new intelligence reports. "War Prime, our deep space monitors are detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the human solar system. The patterns do not match any known technology." "What kind of energy signatures?" Kethvar asked. "We are not certain. The readings suggest some form of space-time distortion, but that should be impossible with human technology. They lack the mathematical understanding necessary for such advanced physics." Kethvar dismissed the report with a wave of his massive hand. "Instrument errors. Human desperation is causing them to overload their primitive power systems. Have any of the conquered species ever developed effective resistance in their final days?" "Never, War Prime. They usually spend their last days either fleeing in panic or begging for mercy. Then these readings are meaningless noise," Kethvar decided. "Continue monitoring, but do not be concerned by the final struggles of a doomed species." Captain Tae-ho Kim and his crew aboard the Dauntless had been traveling toward Earth at maximum speed for 3 days. They were still 2 days away from home when Yuna made a disturbing discovery. "Captain," she said, looking up from her scanner station, "I'm detecting massive Vorthak fleet movements. They have over 5,000 ships heading toward Earth." 5,000? Hana asked in shock. "How many ships did they use to destroy Titan Station?" "Just one," June replied grimly. Tae-ho stared at the tactical display showing the Vorthak armada. Each ship was enormous, capable of destroying entire cities with a single shot. Together, they could burn the surface of Earth until nothing remained but melted rock. "There has to be something we can do," Yuna said desperately. "We can't just watch them destroy our homeworld." "What can one small exploration ship do against 5,000 warships?" June asked. Captain Tae-ho Kim was about to answer when his communication system activated. But instead of receiving a message, it began, transmitting a signal he had never heard before. The signal was complex, mathematical, and completely beyond anything in the Dauntless's programming. "What is that?" Hana asked. Yuna studied her instruments with growing amazement. "It's coming from Earth. But Captain, this signal is using quantum encryption methods that are supposedly theoretical. We shouldn't be able to generate this kind of communication." "Are you sure it's from Earth?" Tae-ho asked. "Positive. But sir, the power requirements for this transmission should be impossible for our current technology. To send a signal this strong across interstellar space would require more energy than our entire planet generates. The signal continued for exactly 60 seconds, then stopped. In the silence that followed, the crew of the Dauntless realized that everything they thought they knew about human technology had just been proven wrong. Maybe, Captain Tae-ho Kim said quietly, humanity has a few surprises left after all, unknown to the Vorthax. The signal Yuna had detected was not just a message. It was the activation code for Protocol Omega, humanity's ultimate contingency plan. Throughout human space, hidden systems that had been dormant for decades began to wake up. On Earth, President Sojin Yang looked around the command center as lights began changing from red to green on hundreds of status boards. All systems are now active, Admiral Han reported. We are ready to begin Phase 1. Dr. Min Ho. Kang nodded grimly. The Vorthax wanted to see human technology in action. They are about to get their wish. Warprime Kethvar expected to wake up on the 7th day to reports of human surrender or evacuation fleets fleeing Earth in panic. Instead, he found his intelligence officers in complete confusion. Warprime, Geltok said, his 6 arms trembling with nervousness. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Kethvar demanded. Earth has disappeared. Kethavar's 4 eyes focused on his subordinate with deadly intensity. Explain that statement immediately. Our long-range scanners show that Earth is still in its orbit around the sun, Geltok said quickly. But we cannot scan the planet itself. It appears to be surrounded by some kind of field that deflects all our sensors. We cannot see through it, we cannot communicate through it, and our test weapons cannot penetrate it. That is impossible, Kethvar said. Human technology is primitive. They could not create such defenses. Nevertheless, Warprime, the planet, is completely protected. We have tried every scanning method in our arsenal. Earth might as well not exist. Kethvar stared at the tactical display showing Earth's solar system. The 3rd planet was there, but it appeared as nothing more than a gray sphere surrounded by swirling energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. Inside Earth's protective field, Admiral Dongwoo Han watched the main display screen in the underground command center. The screen showed the massive Vorthak fleet approaching Earth, their weapons charging for what they expected to be an easy bombardment. Phase 1 is complete, reported General Woojin Park. Earth is now completely protected from all forms of attack. The probability field is holding steady. Excellent, Admiral Han replied. Dr. Minho Kang, please begin Phase 2. Dr. Kang nodded and walked to a special console that had been sealed behind multiple security barriers until this moment. Activating cascade weapons now. Target Vorthak supply lines throughout this sector. He pressed a single button. 300 light-years away, a Vorthak supply convoy carrying food and ammunition to the fleet suddenly encountered something impossible. The lead ship, which had existed for over 50 years, simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not damaged. It had never been built. The ship's crew found themselves floating in space, confused and terrified, with no memory of how they had gotten there. Within minutes, the same thing happened to supply ships throughout Vorthak. Space, vessels that had been traveling between star systems for days or weeks discovered that their ships had never left port. Cargo that had been loaded and transported was back in its original warehouses. Fuel that had been consumed was back in storage. Tanks. Warprime. Geltok called out in panic. Our supply network is collapsing. Ships are reporting that cargo deliveries that happened weeks ago are somehow unhappening. Our logistics computers show that supplies we already received were never sent. Kethvar looked at the reports with growing confusion. What you describe violates the basic laws of cause and effect. Nothing can make past events not have happened. Nevertheless, Warprime, it is occurring throughout our territory. Our mathematicians say it should be impossible, but our supply officers report that it is definitely happening. At that moment, Captain Yuna Park was learning just how wrong the Vorthaks were about human capabilities. She now commanded the first ship of humanity's new Ghost Runner class, vessels that had been built in secret facilities hidden throughout the solar system. Beginning attack run on Vorthak Formation 7, she reported into her communication system. Her ship, the Phantom Strike, did something that Vorthak science said was impossible. It folded space around itself and stepped partially out of normal reality. To Vorthak sensors, the ship simply vanished. But Una could still see and target the alien vessels perfectly. The Phantom Strike fired its main weapon, a beam that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. The beam struck the lead Vorthak warship, which was protected by energy shields that could stop any conventional attack. The shields were useless. The weapon existed in dimensions where the shields had never been built. The Vorthak warship exploded, then unexploded, then exploded again in a different way, then briefly turned into a flower before exploding a final time and staying destroyed. Target eliminated, Una reported calmly. Moving to next formation. Throughout space around Earth, dozens of Ghost Runner ships began their attacks. The Vorthak fleet, which had never encountered enemies that refused to fight by conventional rules, found themselves completely helpless. War Prime, Geltok reported in growing panic. We are under attack by ships that our sensors cannot detect. They appear from nowhere, destroy our vessels with impossible weapons, then vanish again. How many ships are attacking us? Kethvar demanded. We do not know. They could be 3 ships or 300. We cannot track them when they are not actively firing. Communications Officer June Lee, now working from a secret facility on Earth's moon, activated the quantum communication relays that had been disguised as space debris throughout Vorthak territory for the past 30 years. These relays did not just intercept Vorthak military communications, they rewrote them. Suddenly, Vorthak fleet commanders began receiving orders to attack each other. Supply officers got instructions to send ammunition to empty space. Navigation. Computers started providing coordinates to the center of stars. War Prime, Geltok called out desperately. Our communication network is compromised. Our own commands are being altered in transmission. Our fleet commanders are receiving contradictory orders that appear to come from you personally. Kethvar watched his tactical display in growing horror as his perfectly organized fleet began to fall apart. Ships were firing on their own escorts after receiving fake orders. Supply vessels were jumping to hyperspace without destinations. Entire battle groups were maneuvering into formations that left them completely vulnerable to the mysterious human attacks. This is impossible, he said. Humans are primitive. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They should be begging for mercy, not winning a war against the Vorthak Empire. Dr. Minho Kang, monitoring the battle from Earth's command center, smiled as he watched the tactical displays. The Vorthaks made a fundamental error in their understanding of human development, he said to President Sojin Yang. They assume that advanced technology must come from conquest and intimidation, but humanity developed our science through cooperation and curiosity. And that made a difference? President Yang asked. All the difference in the universe, Dr. Kang replied. They built bigger guns and stronger shields. We learned to step outside the dimensions where guns and shields exist. They developed faster ships. We learned to fold space so that distance becomes meaningless. They perfected the art of making war. We perfected the art of making war impossible for our enemies. Admiral Han looked at the reports coming in from across the battlefield. Phase 2 is complete. The Vorthak fleet is in full retreat. Should we pursue? No, President Yang said firmly. We are not conquerors, but send them a message they will understand. The message was delivered by having every piece of Vorthak technology in their empire, every computer, every communication device, every weapon system, display the same word simultaneously. You threatened our world. You murdered our people. You believed we would surrender to your strength. You were wrong. We are not like the species you have conquered. When humanity is threatened with extinction, we do not beg for mercy. We evolve beyond the reach of those who would destroy us. This war is over. You have lost. You have. War Prime Kethavar stared at the message displayed on every screen in his command center. The words burned in his mind as the horrible truth became clear. He had not encountered another primitive species. He had awakened something far more dangerous than anything the Vorthak Empire had ever faced. "Zeltok," he said quietly, "how many ships have we lost?" His intelligence officer checked the reports with trembling hands. "Over 800 ships destroyed, War Prime. Another 300 have suffered critical damage. But that is not the worst news." "What could be worse?" "The humans are not just destroying our ships. They are liberating every world we have conquered in this sector. 18 different species have declared independence from the Vorthak Empire in the past 6 hours. Karthvar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real, desperate fear. How is that possible? Those worlds have been under our control for centuries. Their populations were completely pacified. The humans have been broadcasting detailed information about our military positions, our troop movements, and our weaknesses to every enslaved world," Zeltok explained. "They somehow know everything about our empire, including classified information that should be impossible for them to obtain." Marine Commander Hana Choi crouched in the corridor of a Vorthak battlecruiser, invisible to the alien crew members walking past her. Her personal cloaking system did not just bend light around her, it made her exist in a slightly different quantum state, allowing her to pass through Vorthak armor and weapons as if they were made of smoke. She reached the ship's command center, where the Vorthak captain was trying desperately to coordinate his surviving vessels. Hana materialized directly behind him and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Surrender your ship," she said calmly in perfect Vorthak language. The alien captain spun around, his 4 eyes wide with terror. "How did you get here? Our security systems show no intrusion. You should not be able to exist in this space." "Your security systems are designed to detect physical beings existing in normal space-time," Hana explained. "I am currently existing in 17 different dimensional states simultaneously. Your sensors cannot track something that is only partially real." Around the command center, other Vorthak officers reached for their weapons. Hana sighed and activated her combat systems. She moved like a ghost through the room, disarming each alien before they could even see her move. To the Vorthaks, she appeared to be in multiple places at once, striking from impossible angles. Within minutes, the entire command crew was unconscious on the floor, and Hana was broadcasting the ship's surrender to the human fleet. "Another battle. Cruiser secured," she reported into her communication system. "The psychological impact is working perfectly. They cannot fight an enemy they cannot understand or predict." Dr. Minho Kang watched the battlefield displays from Earth's command center, making final adjustments to humanity's most terrifying weapon. He called it the inevitability engine, and it was about to change the nature of war itself. "Admiral Han," he reported, "the inevitability engine is ready for activation." "What exactly does this weapon do?" Admiral Han asked. "It does not destroy enemy ships," Dr. Kang explained. "Instead, it calculates all possible future outcomes of any military engagement and then makes the worst possible outcome for our enemies become inevitable." "That sounds impossible." "Most of our weapons sound impossible," Dr. Kang smiled. "That is why they work so well against enemies who believe in the impossible." He activated the inevitability engine, and across the battlefield, Vorthak ships began experiencing catastrophic system failures. Not random failures, carefully calculated ones that created maximum chaos with minimum human effort. A Vorthak flagship lost life support in its command center at the exact moment its captain was giving orders for a counterattack. A battlecruiser's navigation system failed just as it entered hyperspace, sending it careening into a sun. A weapons platform's targeting computer began identifying its own escort ships as enemy vessels. "War Prime," Zeltok reported in complete despair. "Our entire fleet is suffering cascading system failures. Every piece of equipment is malfunctioning in ways that cause maximum damage to our combat effectiveness." Kethvar looked at his tactical display and saw his empire crumbling before his eyes. Hundreds of worlds were declaring independence. His fleets were being destroyed by enemies he could not track or understand. His communication systems were being controlled by human forces. "Contact the human leadership," he ordered. "We must negotiate. War Prime, we cannot contact anyone. The humans have taken control of our communication networks. Every message we try to send is being intercepted and modified. At that moment, every screen in the Vorthak Command Center displayed the image of President Sojin Yang, speaking from Earth's command center. War Prime Kethvar, she said, you are now experiencing what happens when humanity is pushed beyond all limits of patience and tolerance. You threatened our children, our families, our entire world with extinction. You murdered 50,000 innocent people to demonstrate your power. Kethvar tried to respond, but his communication systems would not obey his commands. You made a critical error, President Yang continued. You assumed that humanity would react to your threat the same way other species have reacted. You expected us to panic, to beg, to surrender in the face of superior firepower. But humanity does not work that way. The display showed images of liberated worlds throughout former Vorthak territory. Alien populations were celebrating in the streets as human ships drove away their former oppressors. When humanity faces extinction, we do not become weaker. We become something our enemies cannot comprehend or resist. You wanted to conquer Earth because of its strategic location. Instead, you have turned Earth into the center of the largest liberation movement in galactic history. Captain Tae-ho Kim, finally arriving in Earth's solar system aboard the Dauntless, stared in amazement at what he found. The space around Earth was filled with ships unlike anything he had ever seen. Sleek vessels that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, massive space stations that had been built in complete secrecy, and energy patterns that his instruments could not identify. Yuna, he said to his engineer, are those human ships? According to their identification signals, yes, Yuna replied in amazement. But Captain, some of these vessels are using technology that should not exist. They are manipulating space and time in ways that violate everything we thought we knew about physics. How long has humanity been capable of building ships like this? Based on the design patterns, at least 50 years. Maybe longer. Tae-ho realized that he had spent his entire career exploring space for a civilization that was far more advanced than he had ever imagined. We were never just explorers, were we? We were scouts, gathering intelligence and preparing for a war that our leaders knew was coming. Communication Officer Jun Lee looked up from his console. Captain, we are being hailed by Earth Command. Admiral Dongwu Han wants to speak with you personally. When Admiral Han's image appeared on their screen, he smiled at the crew of the Dauntless. Captain Kim, welcome home. Your intelligence gathering mission was successful. The information you provided about Vorthak technology helped us complete our preparations. Admiral, Tae-ho said, how long has humanity been planning for this war? Since the day we developed faster-than-light travel, Admiral Han replied. We always knew that eventually we would encounter a species that viewed humanity as a threat, to be eliminated. We prepared for that day by becoming something they could never understand or defeat. And now the Vorthak Empire is finished. But more importantly, every enslaved species in this part of the galaxy knows that there is a power willing and able to protect them from future oppressors. Earth has become exactly what the Vorthaks feared most, the center of a new galactic order based on freedom rather than conquest. 6 months had passed since the Vorthak ultimatum. In a courtroom built into an asteroid near Earth's orbit, the final war crimes trial was taking place. Chief Justice Bo Young Kim looked down at the prisoner standing before her. War Prime Kethvar, once the most feared military commander in known space, now the last surviving leader of the defeated Vorthak Empire. War Prime Kethvar, Justice Kim said formally, you have been found guilty of genocide, the enslavement of sentient species, and crimes against galactic peace. Before this court passes sentence, do you have anything to say? Kethvar raised his massive head and looked at the human judge with his 4 red eyes. I do not understand how this happened, he said quietly. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 300 species over 1,000 years. We had perfect weapons, overwhelming numbers, and absolute military superiority. How did primitive humans defeat us so completely? We were never primitive, Justice Kim replied. We simply chose not to reveal our true capabilities until we were forced to use them. Humanity spent centuries preparing for the day when we would face an enemy like you. an enemy that viewed peaceful coexistence as weakness. Chief of Intelligence Unji Cho stepped forward with a data tablet. War Prime Kethvar, what you experienced was not a sudden human development of advanced technology. Everything we used against you had been planned and prepared for over 200 years. She activated the tablet, and holographic images filled the courtroom. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, our leaders asked a simple question: what happens when we encounter a species that wants to exterminate us? The answer was Project Long Peace. The holograms showed hidden construction facilities throughout human space, secret research centers, and carefully disguised military preparations. Every human colony, every space station, every exploration ship was built with hidden capabilities. We appeared weak because we wanted potential enemies to underestimate us. Kethvar stared at the evidence with growing comprehension. You planned this war before we ever met. We planned for the possibility of this war, Yunji corrected. We hoped it would never be necessary, but when you threatened Earth with extinction and murdered 50,000 innocent people to prove your point, you made the choice for us. Dr. Minho Kang, now wearing the uniform of a Galactic Peace Advisor, approached the witness stand. War Prime, you made a fundamental error in understanding human civilization. You believed that advanced technology could only come from conquest and military development. But humanity's greatest advances came from cooperation, curiosity, and the desire to protect rather than destroy. Your probability cascade weapons, Kethvar said. Your ships that exist in multiple dimensions, your ability to control cause and effect itself. These things should be impossible. They are impossible using Vortex science, Dr. Kang agreed. But human science developed along different principles. Where you sought to build bigger weapons, we learned to step outside the dimensions where weapons work. Where you developed stronger shields, we learned to exist in spaces where shields cannot function. Justice Kim looked at the final reports from across former Vorthak territory. War Prime Kethvar, this court sentences you and all surviving Vorthak military personnel to permanent relocation on the world of Kethmora, under constant observation by galactic peacekeeping forces. Your military technology will be dismantled, completely. Your species will spend the next century providing reparations to the worlds you enslaved. And if we refuse? Kethvar asked. Then you will discover that humanity has weapons we have not yet been forced to use. Justice Kim replied simply. Ambassador Sujin Lee stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Centauri Prime. Representatives from over 400 species had gathered to discuss the implications of humanity's sudden emergence as a major galactic power. Fellow beings, Ambassador Lee said, Earth seeks peaceful coexistence with all species. We have no desire to build an empire or conquer new worlds. We are content with our current territory and our current role as explorers and researchers. But you have the power to conquer anyone you choose, said the representative from the Zephyrian Republic, a species of floating jellyfish-like creatures. Your technology is beyond anything we have encountered. How do we know you will not become the next Vorthak Empire? Ambassador Lee smiled gently. Because the very nature of our technology makes conquest impossible for us. Our weapons only function against those who threaten innocent life. Our defensive systems only activate when peaceful beings are endangered. We literally cannot use our advanced capabilities for aggressive purposes. The representative from the Crystal Confederacy, a species of living gemstones, chimed in harmonious tones. But what if another species threatens galactic peace as the Vorthax did? Then they will face the same fate as the Vorthax, Ambassador Lee said firmly. Earth has become the unofficial guardian of galactic peace, not through conquest, but through the simple understanding that any species threatening innocent life will face consequences they cannot imagine or survive. Captain Tae-Ho Kim, now promoted to Admiral and commanding the new Human Space Defense Force, stood in the observation deck of the orbital station circling Earth. The planet below was surrounded by a shimmering energy field that had been modified, from a defensive barrier into something far more significant, a monument visible from space, reminding all visitors that Earth was under the protection of beings who had turned the impossible into reality. Admiral Una Park joined him at the viewing window, As the new director of Human Space Command, she oversaw the fleets of Ghost Runner ships that patrolled the galaxy, invisible to all sensors but always watching for threats to peaceful civilizations. Any regrets about how things turned out? Yuna asked. None, Tejo replied. For centuries, humanity wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we are not alone, and we have made sure that no peaceful species ever has to face extinction alone either. The galaxy has changed, Yuna observed. 18 different species have formed the Galactic Peace Alliance, with Earth as the unofficial headquarters. Trade routes that were controlled by the Vorthax for centuries are now free and open. Scientific knowledge is being shared between species that had been isolated for millennia. Admiral Tejo Kim nodded, watching as a convoy of mixed-species vessels passed peacefully through Earth's solar system. The Vorthax wanted to conquer Earth because of its strategic location. Instead, they turned Earth into exactly what they feared, the center of a new galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. Dr. Minho Kang, now in his 90s but still sharp, joined them at the observation window. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if the Vorthax had approached us peacefully instead of with threats and ultimatums. They would have found us to be excellent neighbors and valuable allies, Yuna said. But they chose to threaten our families and our world instead. And that, Dr. Kang said with a smile, was the last mistake the Vorthak Empire ever made. Below them, Earth continued, its ancient rotation, now surrounded by energy patterns that served as both protection and warning to the galaxy. The message was clear to any species that might harbor thoughts of conquest or genocide. Earth was home to beings who did not make war to win territory or resources. They made war to end wars. And in a galaxy where peaceful species could now travel freely between the stars without fear, that made all the difference in the universe. The story of humanity's emergence as a galactic power became legend among the stars. But the most important part of that legend was not the impossible weapons or the incredible technology. It was the simple fact that when humanity was pushed beyond all limits, they did not become conquerors. They became protectors. And the galaxy was a safer place because of it.